Hello, my name is Lisa MacLeod, the Member of Provincial Parliament from Nepean. I'm joined by...
I'm Stéphane Sarrazin, Member of Provincial Parliament for Glengarry, Prescott, Russell.
And I'm Nolan Quinn, Member of Provincial Parliament for Stormont, Dundas, and South Glengarry.
And this is our...
You know?
This is our new podcast called Sunrise Eastern Ontario. As you know, in Eastern Ontario, the sun rises first in the entire province, and we're very excited about that. It actually happens in your constituency. And as proud members of the Ontario Progressive Conservative Caucus, we want to spend each Friday morning coming to you to talk about what we've done in our constituency at the grassroots level and what we're doing at Queen's Park. So I'm just going to introduce my colleagues because they're brand new members of the Legislative Assembly, first-time MPPs, and they have a history all of their own in their own communities. So we're going to start with you, Stéphane, who I by the way, I've also shared my office with them since becoming back to Queen's Park after my small break, and I'm enjoying so much my time with them. So Stéphane, tell us a little bit about yourself and what brought you to Queen's Park.
Well, first of all, Lisa, thank you very much for being, a mentor for us. Like often we go to you with, you share your experience with us, and that's a great asset for us, being like all in Eastern Ontario, of course. And of course, I'm Stéphane Sarrazin, and I'm here as your member of provincial parliament. I was mayor before, and I always said that, I want to work for my community, and that's what brought me here, because of course, we're far from Toronto, so we need a good voice in Eastern Ontario, and that's my plan.
And we have a united voice. And so right beside you, your twin terror, because they're both much taller than me, I find I'm very short when I'm with each of them, is our newest MPP from Stormont, Dundas, South Glengarry, Nolan Quinn. Nolan, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, so I've run a restaurant for a while. Funny enough, I met Stéphane on our first train ride up to Queen's Park. We were sitting beside each other, so we've been good friends ever since. And Lisa's taken us under her wing because I think we were wandering around lost in this building for a little while until Lisa's helped us out and give us an office space to be able to work in. So I've run the restaurant for a while. I have 3 young kids of my own, Nora, Nolan Jr., and Nevin. And my wife's a teacher and born and raised in Cornwall, and sell ice cream as a side business.
The Dairy Queen.
The Dairy Queen.
No, yours is Dairy King of Cornwall. The Dairy King of Cornwall.
Yeah, I've been called other things, but that's perfect.
Now, we're wearing some very important socks today.
Yes, yeah. So these are
That's why?
These are my wedding socks. I only pull them out every now and then when there's something special. And tonight I have my private members built Aaron's Law. So I took a photo, sent it to my wife to make sure that she understands it's my lucky socks and hoping to have a good day with them.
Now tell us a little bit about this Aaron's Law before we move on to Stéphane.
Definitely. So Aaron's Law is a law in 38 states of 50 in the U.S. It's based on Erin Marin. She's a survivor of child sexual abuse, and it's to bring child sexual abuse education into our system, both to teach the children age-appropriate content, to train the teachers and all school staff, and also to ensure that the parents are informed as well.
Yeah, very good. Well, good luck with everything, and I'm sure it's going to do just well. Now, I know with Stéphane, you hit the ground running when you became an MPP. You've taken on a massive leadership role with the Franco-Ontarian community here at Queen's Park, but also throughout the rest of the province in Ontario. But you do have a special role as well with the Franco-Ontarian Association. So do you want to talk a little bit about that, where that's taken you around the world to bring Eastern Ontario's voice to French-speaking communities, and how you're enjoying it?
Yeah, absolutely. It was, I didn't exactly know what I was getting myself into.
But never do.
Yeah, they asked me to be the director for the region of Ontario for the, promoting, French through the parliamentary. And when I was elected, I then became like the spokesperson, or there's a name, they call it chargé de mission, but it's like to promote the French speaking through all parliamentary across North America, South America, and Central America. So that's a big role, and on top of being parliamentary assistant to the Minister of Energy, I always say it's like, politics is like having kids. As much as you think you know what you're getting yourself into, there's always a little portion that you didn't quite know about. But it's fun for me. I got to travel, and I got to meet with a lot of MLAs. Like I know for the rest of the country, they call them MLAs. We call ourselves MPPs. So it's great, to.
What's been the biggest surprise of taking on that role? We'll talk about it in a minute, your Ministry of Energy role. But in terms of taking on a national role as a provincial voice, but also as being a Franco-Ontarian, What has surprised you the most of what we're doing in Ontario well and where we need a lot of work?
I think I have to say that I learned a lot, about like the Francophone in Ontario, and I had a chance to be involved, with an organization back in my hometown. We did celebrate 150th anniversary of a parish, and back then, I got to learn about the story of the Franco-Ontarian, which is pretty much the same across Ontario. It's people from Quebec mostly that came here for work, came in the northern region, in the eastern region, for land opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And it's nice, to be the voice of the Francophone. And I always say, a lot of Francophone will say we're maybe not where we want to be, with the French in Ontario, but as long as we keep progressing,
And you know what? It's really important for me anyway, and I know probably for you, Nolan, because you have a large Francophone community, is to continue to grow Francophone education in the province of Ontario. My own daughter just graduated last year in French immersion with the Ottawa Carleton District School Board, but it really gives our kids a hand up in terms of being ready for the rest of the world, and particularly for the jobs in our region in Eastern Ontario, and especially when we think about the federal government and so many jobs there. So tell me a little bit about that, Nolan. I mean, you now have 3 young kids. We met Nora last year. She brought her to Queen's Park. She was reading a book. She was doing everything she was supposed to do when Dad was in the house. So what's it like? I mean, now you're where I was 18 years ago, for the first time, getting up early on Monday morning or late on Sunday night, and then leaving for a week and then coming home and looking at your spouse who has done everything, like my husband Joe has done
Everything.
for everything. And then you're trying to compensate for what's going on in the House, the legislature, and then with your kids.
It's been busy. I'm very lucky to have my wife, Kim. She takes the lion's share of all the load. My kids are very, very busy. So all 3 of my kids are in French immersion. I was not in French immersion, and it did hold me back in human resources. I had to come to Toronto. So in Eastern Ontario, it's extremely important to be bilingual, to be able to get all the job opportunities that are out there. To have kids, it's tough. The drive from Eastern Ontario, I don't need to explain it to the 2 of you, but it could be anywhere from 4 to 7 hours, depending on traffic and accidents. So I am always up very late on Sunday nights. I do it to myself. I get here around 12 o'clock at night or midnight. I think you're a little earlier than I am normally. But I want to spend as much time with my kids as possible. So quite often I'll leave after they go to bed on Sunday. And then back on Thursday night, I'm finally off Thursday house duty. So I'm home a little bit earlier on Thursdays. But it's a lot of juggling. My in-laws, my parents are helping out a lot. And my wife being a teacher, she's busy. But my kids seem to be in every sport now. I'm in Toronto. So just to add to the pile of busyness of our lives, my wife is on the road every night when I'm in Toronto. So
God bless her. And you, your partner, she is now recently, she's doing what I do. I'm doing Duolingo so I can learn French. She's Duolingoing it to do English. But you also have 2 daughters. And I think your oldest daughter is about the same age as my Victoria, and then you have a younger daughter.
Yeah, I got a 19-year-old who's studying in College La Cité in Ottawa. I'm a paramedic. And then I got my she's going to be turning 16 years old in December, and she's still in high school and not quite sure where she's going exactly. But no, for me, it's a little bit easier, having older kids. Like, even when I'm home, it's like I don't exist, with my 16-year-old. It's not like Nolan, but like the traveling. And for me, I have my spouse who works from home. So she follows me in Toronto usually every week. Yeah. So that's nice. We get to spend a little bit more time together, because it is like quite like the traveling and everything.
Yeah.
So it's the opposite for me, Stéphane. So when I'm in Toronto, I'll FaceTime my children, and quite often they'll put the iPad in front of the cat. I end up talking to my cat, Oscar. We have good conversations back and forth, but I think I miss my kids more than I do. They seem to be very busy, and I get in the way when I'm in Toronto.
They're resilient.
They are very resilient.
Days go by quick because they have school, they've got their friends, they're playing, and it's supper time, and they've got to get bathed and go to bed. And then I find now it's, even with my daughter, it's harder when I'm away, because she's just like, she's going to university, she's going to Carleton now. So that's a big issue. So let's talk a few things about what the big surprises were and what the top issues are in your constituency right now. And I'm going to start with you, because recently the Premier made an announcement with Olivia Chow that there was going to be money coming for the settlement of refugees. And of course, Cornwall has been a hotspot. There's a crossing in Broxborough. in Quebec. So that's obviously a big issue. So I think my city's getting about $1.1 million. I'm not sure how much Cornwall is, but I know that has been a big issue for you. So is that coming up still in the routing? What are the other couple of issues that you're dealing with?
It is. So Roxham Road was putting a lot of pressure on our social services in Cornwall and region. So DevCorp owns the old Nav Canada building on the Highway 2 outside of Cornwall. And currently right now we have about 500 rooms that are actively filled with asylum seekers. Even though Roxham Road has been closed, they're still coming through our airports and our regular crossings. And it looks like Cornwall is going to be possibly in it for the long term. DevCorp is looking at the business model behind this. So we're interacting with IRCC on a regular basis, and my federal counterpart, Eric Duncan, and the mayor of Cornwall, Justin Towndale, as well. So we're juggling a lot. The challenge with it would be is that there's no projections. So we don't know where we're at in 2 or 3 months, and that's hard to be able to provide the services that not only do our local residents need, but the asylum seekers as well. So very lucky in the city of Cornwall. We have a really good team at Human Services, and MCCSS, my ministry, has been able to help them out as well because they were underfunded with the amount of volume they're put through. So whenever they come into DevCorp in Cornwall, they'll be unloaded onto Ontario Works, and they'll be able to get all of the paperwork done. So that does put a little bit of pressure on our systems in the local region of Cornwall.
Yeah, well, good. Any other big issues like healthcare education that you're facing?
Yeah, we're trying to build a new high school. So it was announced in 2017, and I've revived that so that we're talking more about the high school, a new public school to be built. We have great Catholic schools, but we do have 2 older public schools that we're looking to build. And then the exciting project that's been on the docket for a while is the Great Wolf Lodge. That's going to bring a lot of
That's
attention.
exciting. When I was tourism minister, I was like, let's get this thing built for Eastern Ontario.
It is, yeah. The amount of visits that it's going to bring to Ontario and new money to the province is, and then the jobs. There's going to be almost 1,000 jobs for my region, and as well as your region as well. It's going to bring in a lot of people. So it's an exciting project. It's a once-in-a-generation investment for Eastern Ontario, and it's going to put us on the map.
Good. Well, good luck with all that. I mean, I think you know what you need to deliver. What about you, Stéphane? I mean, you've got an interest. I want to go to your energy background now with Minister Todd Smith, great friend of mine, great friend of our region, really a great energy minister, if you think about it. You're doing so much. You're touring all of the LTC or LDCs, and you're just really taking this issue by the horns. And of course, you've got a little sliver of Ottawa in your constituency. You're working a little bit with Hydro Ottawa. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that, the energy supply issue, the cost of electricity, and the work that you're doing to support Eastern Ontarians?
Well, I think, it's a great opportunity for me to be part of this ministry. And, I think, Ontario has never been in a better position when it comes to energy. I remember, being involved in the energy sector like 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And Ontario was the example of what not to do when it comes to energy. Our policies, well, it was not our policies, but the government at the time that was there. I mean, but we're doing so much better now with nuclear power, and we're attracting business, and that's one thing when we have like these meetings. I'm so passionate about that. What our government does, attracting business back to Ontario. I mean, when I hear this stuff at some caucus meeting, I'm just overwhelmed by what we're doing right now, and I think this is a message we got to give to our constituents. We're rebuilding Ontario, and thanks to the energy sector, I mean, it's good on their report card to businesses to say, hey, we're buying electricity that is 90%, clean energy from the nuclear sector, and it's important more than ever. We've seen it. I've been traveling to the United States recently, and because of their policies, they're not getting into nuclear power, and now we'll still have some coal plants, and I think we're so way ahead of other countries and other provinces. So yeah, it's really nice to be.
And what about the maybe top 2 or 3 issues you're dealing with in the constituency, like whether people phone? I know you and I talk about our constituency offices quite a bit, and you'll be like, who's calling. And what impresses me about you, and I know maybe you do this too, Nolan, but cracks me up with him is I did the exact same thing the first year. First 2 years, I thought I had to be on top of all my data management. I had to be a constituency assistant in addition to being the MPP. And I'm sure my staff are very grateful I'm not anymore. But I'm talking to him on the weekend, and he's telling me he's going through all these lists to make sure that they're all done. So he has a really hands-on approach at the constituency office. So what are you hearing?
Well, like myself, I thought it was really important to be close to the people, close to the organizations, because most of the nonprofit organizations in our region are living out of government grants. And, my predecessor wasn't really present there with these organizations. So they're all happy that we have, regular discussions, and I'm there to help them. And we receive so many emails, on a daily basis. I mean, some are not even worth looking at, but it's hard to find the important one in that pile of.
Well, some of them are just like spam, and I used to have one staffer that would print everything off, and it'd be like, I think that this Nigerian prince doesn't really have a Marion, and it was just spam, and it would be hilarious. But anyway, so that's what you're talking about, is trying to get through to what the actual issues are. Now, I'll ask this to both of you. I mean, education is a big issue. So making sure school kids are getting the busing on time. I know Minister Lecce is working very hard at also making sure the schools remain open with labor agreements. Healthcare is a massive issue for us, even though we're making historic investments. Some people are still telling us that the family physician challenge is there and it's real. And of course, mental health is a big one. And housing. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I'm in Barrhaven. And we're rapidly growing, but at the same time, it never seems like it's enough, because I'm still hearing from parents saying, I don't know what's going to happen with my children. Even if the supply goes up, the demand is so high. Are those three issues consistent in the city of Ottawa, where I live and represent, to the rural part of Eastern Ontario where you guys represent? Are they the same?
So for myself, yes, exactly the same. We can't build it fast enough. We don't have enough skilled labor to be able to do it. So to see the increase in apprenticeships over the last year, the 24% increase in apprenticeships, that's it's exciting. We ultimately need the skilled trades to be able to build these homes. And in Eastern Ontario, we can't build them quick enough. So it's been a challenge in my area. And ultimately, because we don't have the skilled trades in my community, quite often they go to Ottawa and they don't come back, because Ottawa is a great city to live in. So getting the skilled trades closer to home is important. What we've done, allowing them to go in grade 11 into the skilled trades that Lecce has done, is extremely important.
He's a great minister.
He is an absolute...
The best I've ever seen in his education. I've been here almost 18 years. It's just a great job.
Yes.
Yeah. And what about you? Same sort of...
No, for sure. I mean,
You talked about construction earlier this week.
Yeah, well, I speak with a lot of developers and, construction company, and what we got to do is, try to get the municipality involved, in trying to get these permits out faster, Now, as a mayor, I was there, and, there's so many, there's so much red tape, and for some reason, I think we need to act faster and give some permits and make it easier for the people to build. What's not helping us is the interest rate, of course, right now. Like I remember speaking with one of the big construction company in my riding, and they used to have like a list of 400 people that were waiting to sign to buy a house. But now, because of the interest rate, they don't even have anybody on that list.
Yeah, it is a scary time.
It is expecting to sell, that's for sure.
Yeah. So do you guys have any questions? I know the idea was to sort of see if you guys want to put me on the hot seat after I did that for you. But if you don't want to, I've got so much experience being on the hot seat, I don't need to be.
And it's an easy question. What's your best memory in your political career?
In my political career, I think it was the first night I was elected. It was the only night my dad was alive to see. I was 31 years old. My daughter had just been born, and I was really excited. And I remember the next day, and I was thinking about it today because I was going to be with you guys, and just thinking about where I was in my first year. And I remember was driving in my car, and people were taking down my signs. I was driving around Barrhaven, and the song came on, The Rest is Still Unwritten by Natasha Bedingfield. And I guess the one thing I'd say to both of you is the rest for you. Like, I've already got so many chapters. Some of them I don't even want to open again. But but you guys have so many opportunities. And when you look back at your legislative career, you'll be able to say, this bill that you're working on tonight was so important, or the movement that you made in some of these negotiations for Franco-Ontarians has been meaningful. And I think when you look back like that, it from that moment where that song came on when I was driving down Greenbank Road to today, nearly 18 years later, it's just like, okay, there are so many chapters. John Tory taught me that as my former leader here. There's so many chapters, and then when you can look back at the really fond ones, it's really amazing. So yeah, just very exciting. Like March 30th, 2006 was a day that will always be one.
was
very
good.
proud of me. Yeah.
Remember doing your inaugural speech?
I do. I listen. It was so I was like, I'm gonna give these liberals heck because Dalton McGuinty was the and who's a friend of mine by the way now, but he was the premier of Ontario, and I was the only member from the city of Ottawa, and I was like a rabble, rather than a young woman. I didn't have a family physician, which is why I wanted to run, and then I ended up with a family physician, and I had all these ideas, and I wanted change. But one thing, and I urge you guys to do this forever, is I always respected the rural and agrarian roots of my constituency, and it has served me well because those values, even as our population grows, it has served me well because it actually is very similar to many of the different communities that grow. And when I mean that by cultural or ethnic communities, because they have come from places as well when they come to Canada as immigrants or refugees. From communities that are very similar, and it's always served me well. And I remember I was all on fire, and Peter Cormos, who's a former New Democratic MPP, anybody that's watched politics would know Peter, former cabinet minister for Bob Ray, was very, very colorful. And he got up and he thought that this was one of the funniest speeches he gave. He goes, "You go, girl, you give them heck," or something like that. And it was always something important for me. And it was important for me that on my first speech that as much as I gave, they gave me not. It was the one time I just didn't expect to get it back in a punchy way, but in you're new, you're young, you have the opportunity to grow. And the comments that I received from the other members who were generous and kind, I have never forgotten. And to this day, if someone gives their maiden speech, I try to really be generous with my comments as well, because I know how much it meant to me.
And it's nerve-wracking, that's for sure.
It is.
I was sweating about my maiden speech. I had my family come in from the cottage. They were all, I think they hadn't showered in a week. But
well, good. It was the summertime.
It was the summertime, yes. So they all came up on the GO train and they watched me. And to me, it was all about faking.
It's a good thing they didn't take the O train. They'd never get here.
The windows may fall off comfortably, but it's...
the cuckoo chucho is what John Baird used to call it.
So it's a memory that will live with me forever in that regard. Being that I am so nervous and awkward, having that speech and talking about where I came from. I'm an introvert, very shy. When I started at my restaurant, I was the cleanup kid because I was too shy to make eye contact and interact with customers. So I swept the parking lot, cleaned the toilets, and that's what a lot of my speech was about. It's that I'm not the smartest one there, but I'll work just as hard as anyone in the room. And ultimately, I wanted, the awkward teenagers that are out there to hear that and to resonate that, high school may be a challenge socially, but as long as you're willing to work, you can achieve anything.
And you have been an absolute superstar since you've arrived here. I've been so impressed with you and give good comments, questions, feedback. You're very studious and you're doing a great job.
Thank you. And that's from your help. You've taken us under your wing.
I'm too short to take you under my wing, son. That's if I tell us a little bit as we start to wrap up about your main speech, and
Well, I was like Nolan said, the air conditioning could have been but it was so hot in there, first time to speak in front of so many people. I mean, I was sweating, and I was nervous. And of course, with time, you realize that we're all here, we're all pretty much the same kind of people. We're, we're all here to help to make sure our community is doing better. Mm-hmm. And, it's things you realize. But what, my surprise is the first day I came to Queen's Park. I never visited Queen's Park before, so I got elected. So when I went in that front door, I'm saying, I've got some luggage. I say, how I'm going to say, that I've been elected. I'm a member of provincial parliament. And, they're going to see me walking in. What's the, security and everything. And as I walked, on the first step, they said, "Bonjour, Monsieur Sarrazin, congratulations."
Well, they knew you were.
Yeah, they knew all of I had and it was
ready. Had my ID ready.
Yeah.
Security.
Well, the reason is that it's like we're at the post office with the help wanted signs. When we walk into security, they have to know who we are. So
that was quite something.
I think the only time I was more nervous than my inaugural speech was our signing inauguration that we signed. I was so nervous that my back was drenched, and when we signed the paper, I don't even think I signed Nolan Quinn. It was just some scribbles that Todd Bucker saw because my hands were so sweaty, the pen was slipping out of my hand. So It's those memories that I'll remember and understand that it's all a process.
Yeah.
I actually missed that. I was at my daughter's graduation.
Good for you.
I couldn't attend.
Parallels.
All right. So one last question to each of you. So we're going to do this. We're going to try and get her done every Friday. So everybody can sort of see what we're up to. And we're going to bring in some of our colleagues, might bring in some of our constituents. We might bring in even some of the media just to talk about what's going on in Queen's Park and some of the issues of the day. What do you hope to achieve and get out of this? And any things you want to say to your constituents today? I'll start with you, Nolan, and I'll go to you, Stéphane.
Well, one is to have open communication. I think, communication is key in this role, to understand what we're doing, what we're working on. But more than anything is to personalize who we are, to have fun in front of the camera, to understand that, it's not always stuffy, that there is some good conversation, good friendships that happen. But the biggest aspect will be to understand what goes on at Queen's Park. Knowing that we're from the east, we're 4 to 5 hours away. We don't get as many visitors as members from the GTA. So just to have a better understanding of what we do and the long days that we work, and for people to understand what we're achieving up here for not only our riding but for the province is what I'm hoping for. But lots of laughs. I think we're going to enjoy ourselves.
Well, Stéphane is a pretty funny guy. He looks like Don Johnson today.
Maybe the suit.
For me, I want to be the voice for our region. And of course, being a mayor before and being involved with many organizations, I used to sit on different board of directors, Eastern Ontario Health Unit, like tourism, like Prescott Russell Tourism. So I'm hoping to be that voice for them, because it's, I remember, having to go through delegation with ministers, and it was sometimes not as easy, to communicate with our government. So I think, what I'm hoping is at the end of my term or my few terms that they'll say this guy was great, was a good voice for us. That's all I'm hoping.
I'll say right now, you're a great guy.
Yeah, you're an amazing guy. And then so everybody wants to see the graphics. You've made them for this podcast.
Yeah, it's good.
You just work on that Surface Pro all day, all night. Yeah, and it's good. Well, this was a lot of fun. I don't know about you, but this was a great idea. I want to thank you both, and we'll keep doing this. To our constituents, to our viewers, to our supporters, to all of those who are just interested in us. This is, of course, the Sunrise Eastern Ontario podcast. Of course, we say sunrise because the sun does rise in the east where we're from. We're going to make sure that we have some of our other fellow Eastern Ontario caucus mates on here, Goldie Gamari, Steve Clark, John Yakubuski, and of course, John Jordan to tell us what's going on in their communities. And we'll reach out to cabinet ministers like Stephen Lecce and others who want to tell us what's going on in their ministry and in our departments. And so we're very excited. We have a beautiful region, Eastern Ontario, the Ottawa Valley, the St. Lawrence, the Thousand Islands, the Rideau River, the Ottawa River, and of course, we are home to Canada's Parliament. So until next time, I want to say thank you for joining myself, Nolan, and of course, Stéphane. We are going to be a very strong and formidable voice for all Eastern Ontarians in the Ontario Legislature, along with our colleagues. Till next time.